Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutari Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namni Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachari Nirvishesha Srinyavadi Pachkachari Bhajitani. Lord Krishna now will tell Arjuna how to practice Krishna consciousness on different levels. The highest level, he will say, is always think of me. But if you cannot do that, then Krishna says, follow the regulations, rules and regulations of Bhakti Yoga, perform a sadhana of chanting and hearing about me and so on. So become a regular devotee who practices. But we see not everyone is ready to chant 16 rounds and follow the principles. Therefore, Krishna says, if you cannot do that, then work for me. So then this, because by working for me, Krishna will say, you will come to the point of practicing Krishna consciousness. And this three, the verses 8, 9, 10, 11, they are describing the from 8 to 10. That's the direct process of devotional service. And in each verse, he will state a result. In verse 10, he will say, if you will work for me, then you will come to the point of practicing a sadhana. And when one practices sadhana, then one will become attracted to Krishna. And by that desire for Krishna, one will come to the level of always remembering him. That's the process. But then Krishna will say, if you cannot do that, working for me, then for social reasons, we may not be able to do that, or one may not yet accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then Krishna says, take the indirect process, which is renunciation and cultivation of knowledge. But in the verses 11 and 12, they describe that indirect process. But we see in these verses, Krishna will not mention any result. In the other verses, he mentions a result. That's more difficult. We will start with the highest level, text 8. So these are called the progressive stages of devotion. And they have a very practical meaning for us, on which I will elaborate at the end. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mayeva mana adatshva. Mayi buddhim nivesaya. Nivasisha simayeva. Atta urtvam nasamsaya. Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always without a doubt. So, in the purpose, the first line, Prabhupada said, one who is engaged in devotional service, he lives in a direct relationship with the Supreme Lord. So described here is the Uttam Adhikar devotee, the devotee who has realized Krishna and lives in a relationship with Krishna, that he always engages in devotional service, that he chants always the holy name and feels Krishna's presence. He only offers food to Krishna, and by that, by taking only prasad, the body becomes Krishnaized. That so that's the highest devotee, but yeah, by engaging in devotional service, especially chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, Srila Prabhupada writes, and always thinking of Krishna, one lives in a direct relationship with Krishna. So that's the purpose of our practice, to live in a direct relationship with Krishna. That, but to come to that stage, we must practice, and this practice to come to that stage is explained in the next verse. Atashitam samadatum nashaksonoshi maishtiram abhyasa yoganatato mamichaptam dhananjaya. My dear Arjuna, winner of birth, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, they will develop a desire to attain me. That so this means we are following a sadhana. The purpose of sadhana is to fix our mind on Krishna without deviation to attain that stage. And then we develop a desire. By performing a sadhana, we develop a desire to attain Krishna. That's what Krishna says here. In the purport, at the end of the first paragraph. So for this second class, so first class was the first verse, 8, 9 is the second class. There are different prescribed rules and regulations. Things to do and things not to do. Not to do, follow 4 regulative principles, are things not to do. And things to do, the rules. Chanting Hare Krishna, performing devotional service, engaging in 9 forms of devotional service. Then one can follow to be ultimately elevated to the stage of attachment to Krishna. That's the purpose. And further, but the practice of Bhakti Yoga, by the practice of Bhakti Yoga, the senses can become purified. And in the purified state, they come directly in contact with the Supreme Lord. So that is to live in a relationship with Krishna. We come to that point. But we have first to become purified, become qualified. But for spiritual life, one must be elevated to the pure stage of love. So the spiritual life starts when one lives in a relationship with Krishna. That stage of love can be achieved by practice of devotional service performed with the present senses. That's a definition of sadhana. Yeah. So this love is now in a dormant state in one's heart. So it's there, but it's covered over with lust, anger, greed, and so on. We need to remove that, and then the love will again become manifest. But it's natural for us to love. But this love is now misdirected to things in this world. We have to redirect it to Krishna. So now the heart has to be purified of the material association, and that dormant natural love for Krishna has to be revived. That is the whole process. At the end, this practice of Bhakti Yoga under the rules of regulations with the under the direction of a spiritual master will surely bring us to the stage of love of God. So that is the practicing devotee who has taken initiation, follows the rules and regulations, and so on. That's this verse. So by following the regulated principles of Bhakti Yoga, under the guidance of an expert spiritual master, one becomes purified and one's dormant natural love of God is revived. But not everyone can come to that stage. Not everyone who comes to our Sunday feast gets initiation and follows the process of Bhakti Yoga. That's not the case. So therefore, we need a process for those who are on a lower level. And Krishna gives us that text then. So if you cannot do that, Krishna says, first, always think of me. If you cannot do that, perform a sadhana, become a regular devotee, then you will come to the stage of always thinking of me. But if you cannot do that, then come to the stage of working for me. By working for me, you will come to the stage of sadhana. Abhyasa pyasamartosi mat karma paramo bhava matartam apikan karmani kurvam siddhim avapyasi. If you cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me. Because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. So one who cannot follow these regulative principles, he can do some voluntary service to help elevate one to this higher states of love of God. So one who is not able to practice the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga under the guidance of a spiritual master can still be drawn to this perfectional stage by working for the Supreme Lord, by doing karma yoga. Yes. Further. Yeah. But I don't know where it is here. Cannot find it on the screen, but by practice of Bhakti Yoga, these senses can be purified. Oh, no, it's here. I get it here. It's a little further. The only difference is that in materialism, one works for sense gratification. The same work can be performed for the satisfaction of Krishna, and that is spiritual activity. Yeah. So Srila Prabhupada, he writes, yes, every endeavor requires land, capital, organization, and labor. So it means congregational members who are not ready to become practicing devotees, we can aspire them to give money, to give land, to help with the organization, and do some service. So many services that now, if you cannot do that, that's unfortunate. There may be some reason for that you cannot come to the temple, you are not allowed, or for social reasons it's not possible. That happens. What to do? Krishna gives two more options. That, yeah. So the first option he gives in 11. Ahaita apya saktusi kartumatyo gamashvita sarva karma phalam tyagam tataku yatatmavam. If, however, you are unable to work in this consciousness of me, then try to act giving up all the results of your work and try to be self-situated. Give up the results of your work, renounce results. that in the purport. So by the practice of giving up one's activities, one is sure to purify his mind gradually. It's a slow process that, yeah. Krishna consciousness itself can purify one's mind, but if there are impediments to accepting Krishna consciousness, one may try to give up the results of his actions. In that respect, social service, community service, national service, sacrifice for one's country may be accepted, so that one day one may come to the stage of pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord. So one cannot come to the temple, one is not allowed to meet the devotees, do some social service, community service, national service, sacrifice for one's country, but don't act selfish, selfless action. Well, it's not 100% always selfless action for one's country and so on, but try to act without being attached, renounce the fruits. That although Krishna consciousness is not dependent on pious activities, if one gives up one hard-earned fruits for some good cause, pious, then gradually one will purify the mind, and one day one will be able to come to Krishna consciousnness. That's and then the last stage, 12. Shreyo jnanam apyasa jnanam vishishyate jnanat kama phala tyagas tyagakshanti anantaram. If you cannot take to this practice, then engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. Better than knowledge, however, is meditation. And better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action. For by such renunciation, one can attain peace of mind. So Krishna says, cultivation of knowledge. That better than knowledge is meditation, and better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action. These are all possibilities Krishna gives. In the purpose, he says, as mentioned in the previous verse, there are two kinds of devotional service: the way of regulative principles and the way of full attachment in love to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For those who are actually not able to follow the principles of Krishna consciousness, it is better to cultivate knowledge. Gradually, knowledge will develop to the point of meditation. By meditation, one can be able to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by a gradual process. So that was the case also in Satya Yuga. The process was meditation there. But they had a very long life. But in all cases, one should give up the results of the fruits of his labor. This means to employ the results of karma for a good cause. And further, somewhere, yeah. Devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the direct method, and the other method involves renouncing the fruits of one's activities. Then one can come to the stage of the Supreme Personality, of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then to the stage, and yeah, then one can come to the stage of knowledge, then to the stage of meditation, then to the stage of understanding the Supersoul, then to the stage of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's the path of Jnana, Astanga Yoga, and then becoming a devotee. It's the same path. But as far as Bhagavad Gita is concerned, it is the direct method that is stressed. Everyone is advanced to take to the direct method, and surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So there are two processes to reach the supreme goal. We have heard the direct process and the gradual process, that the indirect. Devotional service is the direct method, and the gradual step-by-step process is a process of renunciation, knowledge, meditation, realization of the super soul, and that's indirect. But Bhagavad Gita recommends the direct process of surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is important information for us who are preaching. Our duty is, if people are coming to the temple, to understand on which level they are and give them an engagement according to their level. That's important. That, of course, before, there are different ways of preaching. The first preaching is we want to preach to new people outside. That's the most challenging. Then we have to search first to those who are receptive for Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada also preached in that way. Lord Chaitanya also preached in that way. Lord Chaitanya Srila Prabhupada came to America and he was preaching to the hippies. Hippies were already renounced. They wanted change. But they had their alternative was not right. That when Lord Chaitanya came to Varanasi, Benares, where Bhaktivedanta Sarasvati and all this Mayavadis, and they were criticizing Lord Chaitanya openly as a sentimentalist. And Lord Chaitanya was staying with Tapana Mishra and Chandrasekhar, and he avoided them. But 3 years later, he came again there, and some Maharashtrian Brahmin invited him to meet with this Mayavadi sannyasis, and they had become more favorable. So we know the meeting of Lord Chaitanya and Bhaktivedanta Sarasvati, and Bhaktivedanta Sarasvati said, well, you look as effulgence as Lord Narayan, but what we don't understand is you are chanting these holy names and dancing like a sentimentalist. Why don't you act as a sannyasi and study Vedanta and become renounced? And Lord Chaitanya said, when I went to Gaya and I met my spiritual master told me, you are a fool. You are unfit to study the Vedas and Vedanta. You just chant his holy name. And then I started to chant his holy name, his holy names of Krishna, and then I became mad. And now I'm in that situation. But what Vedanta is concerned, that I'm confused about your explanation, but I will give you my explanation, the direct explanation. And he explained Vedanta in an extraordinary way. And they were all impressed by his knowledge. And they all converted to Vaishnavism. They become all devotees. Of course, only Lord Chaitanya could do that. But he did not go preach to them the first time, because they were too offensive. They were not receptive. So this is an important aspect. Who is receptive? We need to find out who is receptive. Like, who is receptive? Mostly people who are on a junction of their lives, a change. Like university students, they are on a change in their life that they may be good. Also, those who are pious, like vegetarians, there's a good candidate. That so we must do some research and preach to those outside. But then, of course, the purpose is to get them to attend our weekly programs, and then they join the congregation. But then we have to inspire the congregation members, preach to them to come to the next level, and that's the level of sadhana which Krishna. And if they are not able to come to that level, we must engage them. Therefore, it's important that we engage them in small groups, and they make a commitment to each other to read regularly the scriptures together and to engage them in offering food to the deity, and they become friends, and so that they have regular association. And by that, gradually, they come to the point of committing that. So it needs a plan. And Srila Prabhupada said, yes, we have many devotees, but we must boil the milk, bring them to a higher level, because if they are congregational members, we must bring them to the level of initiated devotees, means committed to chant 16 rounds, committed committed to do some service, committed to read every day Srila Prabhupada's books, committed to strive for initiation and coming to initiation. So then they should come to the level of committed. And when they are committed, when they have taken initiation, we must educate them further to come to the level of core members. We're going to push forward the mission of Srila Prabhupada. So on each of these levels, we must make a plan. And that's what Krishna is saying here. You have these different levels, and engage everyone according to his level. There is place for everyone, but we must engage them according to the level of their realization or their possibilities. So, any comment, question? Yes, please. I like that direct, indirect. The indirect is very similar to the direct, because in the indirect, Prabhupada is saying, you can also chant Prasadam, take bar, rise in the morning early, collect flowers for the day. I think can you point me exactly where this is? This is in the purport. Yes. Which verse? Last paragraph. Here, yeah. The practice of the regulated principles of Bhakti Yoga, that's the direct process, Bhakti Yoga. One should take under the guidance of an expert spiritual master, follow certain principles. One should rise early in the morning, take bath, enter the temple, offer prayers, and chant Hare Krishna, then collect flowers to the deities, cook for the deities, and so on. That is our process of sadhana. That's the direct process. Yeah, because it's verse 9. 9 is the direct process. 8 and 9 and 10 are the direct processes. What would be
if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulating principles of Bhakti.
That's sadhana. That's the practice of a devotee, chanting 16 rounds and follow the four regulative principles. That's what's mentioned here. If you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, you think always of Krishna. If you cannot always think of Krishna, do this sadhana. You are not an Uttamadikar. You are not the most advanced devotee. You are not yet liberated. That's him.
You start from Madhyamadikari.
No, these are just the levels that usually we start in the previous, the next verse. The next verse is we come to the movement and we do some service in the temple. We are not yet chanting, but we are connected. But the Madhyamadikar can also do sadhana. That it's not that one is doing sadhana, that one is a Madhyamadikar. Madhyamadikar is after liberation. Liberation. The heart is completely pure. Then one is a Madhyamadikar. That takes 30, 40 years to become a Madhyamadikar. If you become a Madhyamadikar, you go back to the spiritual world. It's not cheap, a Madhyamadikar. You can act as a Madhyamadikar, but that does not mean you are a Madhyamadikar. Acting as a Madhyamadikar, in Uddhav Gita, it is said there are 4 kinds. The devotees see as 4 relationships. A relationship of love with Krishna, a relationship of friendship with the devotees, he's preaching to the innocent, and he's avoiding the envious, those who are against Krishna. And that's the preacher of Krishna consciousness. He's acting as an Madhyamadikar, but he's not a Madhyamadikar. Only when his heart is pure, after 30, 40 years, his heart is pure, one becomes a Madhyam. And then you don't take birth again. So that's very high, Madhyam. Don't think ourselves as a Madhyam. We are all nonsense. That is the right attitude. I'm not a Madhyamadikar, because Prahlad Nanamats gave a seminar, Madhurya Kanambini, from Shraddha to Prema, and explained the stages. At that time, he was practicing 40 years already, Krishna consciousness. And I said, I'm a Kanishthadikar. One can say this is false humility. No. But there are different levels of Kanishthadikar. There are those who are just starting and still very attached to material life. And there are those who are nearly liberated. It's also Kanishta. So it's a broad spectrum that it are 5 stages. Shraddha, that's the beginning. We hear about Krishna. Then the next stage is Sadhu Sangha. Sadhu Sangha is you take up the sadhana, you accept the spiritual master, and he teaches you. And then Bhajana Kriya, you start to practice. And then the back practice must become, after a few years, it becomes nishtita. You become steady in the practice. And then you have to go to anartha-nivritti. The cleansing of the heart starts when you stop your offenses. That takes many years. And then when the offenses begin to go away, then the heart begins to become purified. And that's a period of 20, 30 years usually. You can be advanced from previous life, but don't count on it. So a Madhyamadikar is really a liberated person, like Sukadev Goswami. he was a Madhyamadikar and came very quickly to an Uttamadikar because he was pure in heart. Because then it goes quick. And once the heart is purified, the stages afterward, they go quick. But the stages after is by the mercy of Krishna. The stages before, we can do our part. That anyway, that's because that's many times a misconception by devotees. They think themselves as Madhyamadikar. It's not a healthy thing to think yourself already liberated. But anyway, that helps. Yes.
Similar question, just to understand. All these verses just giving the level. When if somebody want to start, as you mentioned, that if they join the movement, then they can start with services. But somebody who are outsider and we want to explain them, then what level?
To explain something to an outsider?
Yeah, the outsider. They are saying they wanted to know more about it, which level they want to start.
Yeah, outsiders, we should first attract them, and let them come, give them the feeling of, I like to be with the devotees. Give them a good experience. That and then they will come regularly. Don't try to instruct them from the beginning. Just let them do what they like and what they are good in, and give them association of devotees. And then in due course of time, that will become clear. But it's just to give them a good experience. Bhakti Maharaj, he was a master in it. That he knew how to make the devotees feel good. He was a master in it. Yeah, we miss him in that sense. And that's the experience we have to give to new people. That they feel this is my home. I like these people, and they become attracted, and then the rest will come.
That reminded me, Maharaj, I asked Guru Maharaj when we started Bhakti Ruksha in New Jersey. I asked Guru Maharaj, what should I keep in mind when hosting and running it? So Guru Maharaj said it is 95% relationship, 5% person.
Yeah, right. Especially in the beginning. Good. Very good. Let's take a pause till 12 o'clock, and then we do the last part of the 12th chapter. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. We will continue with the last section of the last section of the 12th chapter. That in this last section, Lord Krishna will give a list of transcendental qualities which automatically develop when we perform Bhakti Yoga. That these qualities are very pleasing to Krishna, endearing to Krishna. That so that further substantiates the point that bhakti is the highest process because it leads to the development of these qualities. Qualities indicating spiritual advancement, qualities indicating character reformation. So Krishna will conclude at the end of this chapter, one who follows with faith this process of devotional service, making him the supreme goal, is very dear to me. That so by that, in this chapter, the question is discussed: who is better, the impersonalist or the personalist? it is resolved devotional service is the best of all processes of spiritual realization. That's a summary of this chapter. Of course, for us, it's an opportunity when we hear these qualities, we can see if we have these qualities, to what extent we have these qualities. But, so, Advesta Sarva Bhutanam Maitra Karuna Evacha Nirmamo Nirahankara Samadukha Sukha Kshami Santusta Satatam Yogi Yatatma Dritta Nisaya Mayakpita Mano Bhutir Yo Madbhakta Same Priya. One who is not envious, but who is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not take himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada discusses these qualities, but there is also a quote in the quote book on this verse, but the quote is more than 2 pages. So I recommend you that to read it in your own time, the quote on 1314. But in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, this person is acting as my enemy due to my own past misdeeds. So it is better to suffer than to protest. That's this verse from the Bhagavatam, from the Brahma Mohan Natena Kampam Samikshamo Bhushat Me Padmat Kitam Vipakam Ridvakva Purvya Fidodanma Namaste Chibetyo Muktibate Sadaya Bhak. That's so whenever a devotee in distress or fallen into difficulty, it thinks that's the Lord's mercy. A devotee is responsible, and when he gets distress, he understands, I get this because I've put others in distress before. And Krishna is so kind, he gives me only a little. So, and I'm happy to suffer for it. I have to pay for it because I did that before. And when one has this mentality, Krishna says, then one's claim for liberation is there. Yeah. So thanks to my past misdeeds, I should suffer far, far greater than I'm suffering now. So it's the mercy of the Supreme Lord that I'm not getting all the punishment I'm due. I'm just getting a little by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, in disturbing situations, the devotee remains calm, quiet, and patient, despite many distressful conditions. This is a high level that this nirmama means that the devotee does not attach much importance to the pains and troubles pertaining to the body. That because he knows perfectly that is not the material body. So he is tolerant and he is satisfied with whatever comes by the grace of the Lord. All these qualifications enable him to fix his mind and intelligence entirely on the Supreme. So if someone puts you in distress, that one who is not in Krishna consciousness, he thinks, I'm a victim. This person has done that to me. And start to speak to others how you are a victim and complain that and worse than that is I will retaliate. That and then one thinks always of that person and how to retaliate, and there your Krishna consciousness goes. You cannot think of Krishna. You think always of these problems. That So therefore, one must learn to tolerate and be peaceful. And that tolerance is based on knowledge. Knowledge. That if one does not tolerate, one becomes entangled again in the action and reaction. That so yes, that is 14. So by following the regulative principles of devotional service, a devotee becomes calm, quite peaceful, and even joyful, despite many distressful conditions. Such qualities enable him to fix his mind and intelligence entirely on the Supreme Lord and endear himself to Krishna. So now text 15. We will hear more qualities of the devotee. Yasman no vichyate loko lokam no vichyate saya Aksamasabayot peher muktya sasame priya. He by whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety is very dear to me. So, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, since a devotee is kind to everyone, he does not act in such a way as to put others in anxiety. Then further, actually, because the devotee is always engrossed in Krishna consciousness and engaged in devotional service, such material circumstances cannot move him. A devotee who is always transcendental to all these is always transcendental to these disturbances. And Srila Prabhupada clarifies, generally a materialistic person, he becomes very happy when there is something for his sense gratification and his body. But when he sees that others have something for their sense gratification, then and he hasn't, he's sorry and envious. When he's expecting some retaliation from an enemy, he's in a state of fear. And when he cannot be successfully execute something, he becomes dejected. So that's a non-devotee. But a devotee is unmoved by material circumstances because he's always engrossed in Krishna consciousness and engaged in devotional service, unlike a materialistic person who is always anxious, fearful, and envious. So non-devotees are always in anxiety and in distress. Because a devotee does not have that, because he's not attached, it's from Krishna. He never thinks this is for my enjoyment. He never thinks I'm going to happy with when I marry this young man, I will be happy. That's material expectations. No, such relationships are always full of suffering unless we cooperate in Krishna consciousness. It's only suffering. We will hear that in the next chapters, that in the 18th chapter, Krishna speaks about happiness. That happiness in the mode of passion. That very nice in the beginning, attraction of the senses, and then, but after some time it becomes poison. That so in the beginning is I love you, and then a few years later I hate you. Go from one side to another. These are relations based on the body concept of life, and they are completely full of anxiety. But the devotee has, that's the devotee I'm married, but it's temporary. It doesn't take that as absolute. That is not the goal of his life to have a wife or a husband and children. That's But it's a service I do for Krishna. And if Krishna wants me tomorrow to do another service, thank you, Krishna. Whatever you want, you change. And I'll be happy to do whatever. That then one becomes free from anxiety. That now text 16. Anapeksha chuchirdaksha udashino gata vyata sarvaramba paritsahi madbhakta sami priyaham. My devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure expert without cares, free from pains and not striving for some results, is dear to me. There are many points here that without cares, free from all pains, that so Srila Prabhupada gives you an example. Money may be offered to a devotee, but he should not struggle to acquire it further. Naturally, a devotee takes a bath at least twice in a day and rises early in the morning for devotional service. Thus, he is naturally clean both inwardly and outwardly. So a devotee never takes part in a particular party. Therefore, he is carefree. If there are disputes, he's never going to take a side. Yeah. He's never pained because he's free from material designations. So we have a quote here, from two quotes. Every living being, who wants to read it? Every living being.
Every living being is dependent on someone else because he is made like this. Actually, everyone is dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Lord. But when one forgets his relation with the Lord, he becomes dependent on the conditions of material nature. Renunciation means renouncing one's dependence on the conditions of material nature, and thus becoming completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. Real independence means complete faith in the mercy of the Lord, without dependence on the conditions of the Lord.
Very interesting. That's a different kind of definition of renunciation. And that means renunciation means renouncing one's dependence on the condition of material nature. One depends on what Krishna wants and not want, and not what the mind tells us, what's good and bad. That sometimes it's not easy. That sometimes we want to refrain from eating sweets, but then the mind starts to protest. I want sweets, I want sweets, I want sweets. And the mind becomes very sour. What to do? Prahlad Maharaj said, what you do then, you tell the mind, okay, I will give you a little, but that's it. Give the little sweet, and that's it. But don't come under the control of the mind. That is dangerous. That, of course, a sour mind is also not easy to live with, but we have to tolerate and build up that. Then anapeksha, neutral. Just see, interesting. When I went to America, I went with 40 rupees. Then Sumati Moraji gave me a ticket and I had only 40 rupees. That 40 rupees could not be spent in America. could not do anything with it. But then when I was disembarking, I told the Captain Pandya, I have not a single dollar with me. Will you purchase one set of my books? So Swami, what is your price? $16. He paid me $20. And why not? He had $20 when he arrived in America. Now 17. 17. Yona shishati nadvesti na shoshati na kankshati subha subha parichahi bhaktimam yasame priya. One who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things, such a devotee is very dear to me. Yeah. So renouncing auspicious and inauspicious things. That we will hear what Prabhupada says here in the purport of 17. A devotee is neither happy nor distressed over material gain and loss, nor is he very much anxious to get a son or disciple, nor is he distressed by not getting them. That's important. No, we are not distressed about gain or loss. That's yoga. That's one of the definitions of yoga I gave before. That when we is equal in success and failure, this equanimity is called yoga. So what do we have to do to be equal in failure and success? Not expecting any success or failure in this world, just expecting to serve Krishna. That if you are expecting that, that's a material desire. And then automatically you will lament or desire. So we can look in our heart. It's a tough exercise. You will see that you have many attachments in your heart. It's not easy to become free from them, but gradually to the pose of devotional service, they are removed gradually. And then one comes to that stage. No expectations anymore. That you have become so much frustrated already in your life that I don't want it anymore, Krishna. No expectations. Let's see what happens. And then wonderful things happen in your life. Krishna reciprocates. You let do your wonderful things. But first we have to come to that point, purification of the heart. Because as long as you have material desires takes us away from Krishna. That's saying not wanting Krishna. So yes, there is a quote here, I think it's 17 quote, yes. Yeah. In Bombay. Yes, someone wants to read?
Prabhupada, I love Krishna's neutral jersey.
No, it's here. Yes, Subha.
Yes, Subhasu. When I was in Boston, I was thinking, I have come here. How will they receive me? As soon as I say no meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication, immediately they will reply, please go home, don't preach here. All right. So for 1 year, there was no success, and I was always going to the shipping company to ask, when does your ship next return? So the manager said, Swamiji, you're always inquiring, but you never go. I said, yes. When I'm too frustrated, I come here to ask you. Then I go back again. Let me see 2 months more. I was going like that. Nobody was there with me.
Yeah, Subha. That's a great example. That's 18, 19, that first Gita verse. Samasatra samitresha tata manapamanayo Chittoshna sukadukhesu samasanga vivakchita Tulyaninda stutirmani santusto yena kenachit Anikyata stiramatir bhakti mame priyo nara. One who is equal to friends and enemies with equipoise in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge, and who is engaged in devotional service. Such a person is very dear to me. A lot of qualities here. Honor, dishonor, happiness, and distress equal fame and infamy. That is always free from contaminating association. Always silent, satisfied with anything. Doesn't care for any residence. That, yeah. So it's here. But the devotee is always transcendental to artificial fame and infamy, distress and happiness. He's very patient. He does not speak of anything but the topics about Krishna. Therefore, it's called silence. So if you speak always about Krishna, materially you are silent. Mona brother. Only speaking of Krishna. That, yeah. Narottam Das Thakur, it was like that. He would only speak of Krishna, and the devotees knew that. Don't speak with anything else to him. He will only speak about Krishna. That, yeah. That's then further. A devotee is happy in all conditions at the end. One who wants to be recognized as a devotee should develop the good qualities. Of course, he does not extraneously endeavor to acquire these qualifications, but engagement in Krishna consciousness and devotional service automatically helps him develop them. Okay. There's quotes. Yeah, 2 quotes from Prabhupada. Someone want to read? Aniketa.
Prabhupada, Aniketa, automatically Aniketa. There was no place to live, no money. Sannyas means Aniketa. Now we have 100 temples, but Krishna does not allow me to stay more than 8 days. I am dependent on Krishna. If he allows Hare Krishna, sometimes I think when I was simply depending on Krishna those days. Now I have to depend on so many disciples. They are good disciples. They are bringing everything. I'm simply ordering. Still, I think that was better to depend.
Yeah, someone can read the next one.
In early 1977, Srila Prabhupada went to Bhubaneswar. The ISKCON land was a wild jungle, full of mosquitoes, snakes, and scorpions. It was so far from the city center that even during the daytime, people were scared to visit out of fear of bats. Although arrangements had been made for Prabhupada to stay comfortably in the government state guest house, he at once rejected this proposal, saying, I will only stay where my disciple Gaurvardhana has built a mud hut for me. Prabhupada stayed there for 17 days and laid the cornerstone for him.
Srila Prabhupada ki. The conclusion. Yetu dharmamritam idam yatoktam paryupashate shadadanamat parama bhaktastativa me priya. Those who follow this impersonal path of devotional service and will completely engage themselves with faith, making it the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. That so we have heard in the previous verse, a devotee is satisfied and happy amidst the dualities of material life and is free from bad association. That he automatically develops all good qualities because of his engagement in devotional service. So a devotee is happy in the most disturbing situations. That's quite interesting. That it's not that there will be no disturbing situations anymore when I become a devotee. No, they will be there, like, because that's material existence. Material existence means disturbance. That if you have a body, there is disturbance, must come. That's but the solution is to stop this cycle of birth and death and develop all these qualities. So in this chapter, Krishna has proven that devotion service is the topmost process of spiritual realization. This impersonal path of renunciation, meditation, cultivation, knowledge is also helpful as long as one does not have the association of devotees. But if one has association of devotees, you follow the path of Bhakti Yoga. One engaged in pure devotional service is not undergoing this step-by-step system that impersonalists follow. It's Srila Prabhupada in the last purport says here that moment. The Supreme Lord has explained the processes of transcendental service for approaching him. A little further, there is no doubt that devotional service to the personality of God is the best of all processes. Then further, there is this path. This path is recommended in this chapter. Therefore, there is no doubt that devotional service is the only absolute path for self-realization, for the attainment of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The impersonal conception of the Supreme Absolute Truth, as described in this chapter, is recommended only up to the time one surrenders himself for self-realization. In other words, as long as one does not have the chance to associate with a pure devotee, impersonal conception may be beneficial. That yes. So yeah, we know Vidura at a certain time he said to Dhritarashtra, and Duryodhana heard it, "Get rid of your evil son. He will be the cause of the destruction of your dynasty." So it was, because Vidura was giving advice to Dhritarashtra. But Duryodhana heard it and he became very angry. And he tossed them out. He threw him out of the palace. And at that time, Vidura saw two things. He saw two energies. He saw how Duryodhana was bewildered by the material energy, but he saw the hand of Krishna. Krishna is making me free now. I can give up this service in this politics and so on. Because he had for a long time the desire to go on pilgrimage. And he went on pilgrimage. So he was not disturbed by Duryodhana tossing him out of the palace. He saw Krishna's hand. Krishna is helping me to get free from this entanglement. And now I'm free to go on pilgrimage and seek and search for an associate with sadhus, which he did for 30 years. Until after the Battle of Kurukshetra, he met Maitreya Muni. He met Vidura first. He met Uddhava first, and then Maitreya Muni. And that's all in the Bhagavatam. That this is an example of tolerating. That also Yudhishthira Maharaj was very tolerant that his principle was it's better to well, it's better to die or to get dishonored or whatever than to deviate from the principles of Krishna consciousness, the principles of morality and so on. That so this is important. We stick to the principles of Krishna consciousness at all time, even if it causes a lot of distress, so-called. And when we follow, we have the determination to follow. Krishna will always protect us, because if you follow the principles of Krishna consciousness, you will be protected by these principles. That therefore, a devotee does not worry. He depends on Krishna in all circumstances. Good. So, in that sense, a devotee is detached. So this is the end of the 12th chapter. Any questions?
From text 12.8 up to 12.12, Lord Krishna is telling us the steps. First, he mentions the topmost bhakti, which is Raganurag Bhakti. Do we call that as Raganurag Bhakti?
That is not Raganuga Bhakti. It's spontaneous devotion. Raganuga Bhakti is a sadhana to come to that stage.
So Raganuga is still
sadhana. You have two kinds of sadhana after the liberated stage. Because the sadhana we follow now is Vaidhi sadhana Bhakti, and the other is Raganuga Vaidhi Bhakti. Raganuga Bhakti, it's also follow rules and regulations, following in the first step of a Ragatmika, a perfected devotee, that and hearing about his devotee and absorbing in the mood by reading the Astakalya Lila and the pastimes of this devotee. That's developing a certain mood. But Raganuga Bhakti is not always required. Not always required. No, you can straight go. You will learn that different paths to come to prema. But this is higher knowledge. You will get that in chapters 17, 18, 19 of Nectar of Devotion. There you will get that all finely explained. But yes, that's this through sadhana we come to the perfect stage of always remembering Krishna, Bhava and Prema. So Raganuga, that's the detail. No, Bhava Bhakti is the preliminary stage to come to Prema. But that is above the liberated stage. If we perform sadhana bhakti, then spontaneous Krishna will reveal our situation at a certain moment. So there is no need to go into Raganuga Bhakti. If you go premature in Raganuga Bhakti, it will spoil your devotional service. You will fall down. Something to be very careful with. That's after the liberated position. But Krishna reveals our position to the heart. So that begins after liberation, not at once, not healthy. It reveals what kind of devotee that you are, what's your position in the spiritual world. That it's not that we have to attain that position on our own effort. No, Krishna will reveal it. But when it's revealed in the process of revelation, then you become interested to read about a certain devotee, a certain devotee in the spiritual world, and you become attached to them, and then Raganuga can help. But be careful, it's revealed by Krishna. It's not under our control. And prematurely going to Raganuga Bhakti is dangerous, and it is not required. You can also go directly from sadhana bhakti to the highest realization. That you will learn in Nectar of Devotion. That is described in. Good. Anything else? Good. Yes. I think we will do chapter 13 this evening, because next week, chapter 18 has 7 lessons, and it's more than usual. Therefore, and chapter 13 is a chapter which is very difficult to understand. And therefore, I want to do it now and tomorrow morning, this evening and tomorrow morning, and at noon, chapter 14 already. That we have to get to keep up with our pace, otherwise we get next week in difficulty. That chapter 13, because next section from chapter 13 till chapter 17 is all about Jnana. It's knowledge that supports our devotional service, our practice of devotional service. But the 13th chapter is very difficult to understand. That's very difficult, and therefore I will present it this evening and tomorrow, and maybe a Sunday or something after your exam, hear it again, hear the recording a second time, because it's not easy to understand. That's the most difficult chapter to understand, especially in the beginning. That therefore it's good that we start, because then next week, after chapter 18, it's not finished. I will have at least 2 more thematic sessions about the themes of Bhagavad Gita. And that's part of the Bhakti Sastri course. It's not just we go to the 18th chapter. You must know for each of the 16 topics where you find the verses and how these topics are connected. And if you know them, that will make you a strong preacher. And that's the purpose of this course. It's not just for ourselves, but to explain to others. And that will help you very much. That will help you also with your last closed book and open book exam. Because if you know these themes and where to find the verses, it's easy to write an essay or answer questions. So, yeah, sorry, this Bhakti Sastri course is a serious course, and I want to go to the end with you. You will be grateful later that you have gone to this intense course, but it's intense, I know. But thank you very much. Shantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.